Hey all you cool scouts and scouters, welcome to the second video of the Chattahoochee Council's Scouts BSA Rank Advancement video series. I'm your host, Chris, and today we're going to learn a little bit about Leave No Trace. Have you ever heard of Leave No Trace? Well, basically it's a fancy way of saying ninjas of the woods. But instead of swords and nunchucks, we have trash bags and trowels. Are you ready to learn today? I'm ready to teach. Let's go. The first principle of Leave No Trace that I want you to know is plan ahead and prepare. So there are many different ways to go about this. First off, do you have a map of the area? Do you have information for emergency purposes? A lot of times you can call up, especially in the national forests, you can call a ranger station and get some information on the area. Are you able to hike without a bear canister? A lot of areas require during certain times that all food be stored inside a bear canister and hoisted into a tree. Is there a reliable water source? Sometimes during the months, especially during the summer months when it's hot and we have droughts, you may not have a reliable water source, and so you'd have to pack in all of your water. So knowing those, knowing about weather. Weather can sneak up on us. We've all been there, and we've all had some fun and interesting times inside of a tent during thunderstorms, I'm sure. I know I have. So all of those things need to go into your plan. So as you're planning your trip, ensure that all of those bases are covered, and of course, let somebody know where you're gonna go and when you're gonna expect to be back. All right, the second principle of Leave No Trace is travel and camp on durable surfaces. What is a durable surface? Well, it's pretty easy. Rock, durable. Soft, sandy soil, not durable. What that's gonna do is it's gonna minimize your impact on the environment. The more that you hike on some of those areas, especially soggy and wet areas, the more damage is going to occur to the ecosystem. So avoiding those types of trails, avoiding trails when it's heavily raining, like it has just rained here, so the trails are gonna be a little bit soggy, but some of them are on rock and have rock beds, so they're gonna dry out a lot quicker. They may be a little slippery, but they're still more durable. Second, a good campsite is found, it is not made. So with that, you want to always try and use a already designated campsite or a campsite that already exists with a pre-existing fire ring and pre-existing places for your tents or tent pads. Now, with the trail system, if you know an area is very popular and is going to have a high amount of traffic, try to avoid those and limit your group size to typically 10 or less. Some areas actually have a 14-person maximum per group, like up in the wilderness areas in North Georgia. So make sure you know the rules. And that goes back to rule number 1, which is plan ahead and prepare. So the third principle of Leave No Trace is disposing of waste properly. Now, what does that mean? That means pack it in, pack it out. If you bring it, you take it back with you. And also, we as scouts strive to leave a place better than we found it anyways. So a really good tip and trick for you is always carry an extra trash bag. This has multiple uses because you can also use it to cover your pack in the event of an emergency rain. You know, just pops up out of nowhere, whip this bad boy out, you've got yourself a bona fide rain cover. Now, Ziploc bags are your friend too, because you can easily zip it, store all your waste. If you find some trash along the trail, pick it up, put it in here. It stays separate from everything else so as not to contaminate. Now, we're talking about waste of all kinds. So what about human waste? I'm glad you asked. You see that? That's a cat hole. No, a cat didn't dig it. I did, with my shovel. Disposing of human waste properly in the outdoors is a piece of cake. First thing you gotta do is find you a spot at least 200 feet away from water sources and campsites and trails, any area where humans are going to be on a regular basis, okay? Then you're gonna dig a 6 to 8 inch diameter circle into the ground, and then you're gonna dig that 6 to 8 inches deep. You see, I can put my whole hand past the wrist. What that's gonna do is it's gonna keep your waste below the surface of the soil. That way animals can't come by and think, oh, hey, that smells funny, let's dig it up and eat it. We all know that's not a good idea, so let's avoid it, okay? 200 feet away from campsites, water sources, and trails. And then when you're done, you pile it back on, and then of course, you make it look like there was no hole ever there with a stick in it, so that way, other scouts that are following Leave No Trace principles will understand You don't want to dig a hole there. It's already been used. All right, the fourth principle of leave no trace is leave what you find. Have you ever heard the phrase, take only photos, leave only footprints? Well, we kind of want to leave no footprints too, but you get the drift. Basically, a lot of areas you may go to may be historical sites, may be full of rich history, or even going to your favorite hiking trail where there's a bunch of rocks. Imagine if every single person that visited that site took one rock. There wouldn't be any rocks left, right? That's why we want to leave what we find. And of course, say you're hiking and you find a deer antler or something like that. That antler is actually a food source for smaller animals like squirrels and mice. They chew on it to get the calcium. So you may be taking that out of the environment. We prefer to leave everything as we found it, except for trash. You got to pick up the trash. Principle number 5, minimizing campfire impacts. So you see we've already got a fire ring here, so we're going to utilize an existing fire ring in the campsite we stay at. And what that's going to do is that's going to prevent all these other areas from getting scarred and burned from using the fire there. So what we want to do is, one, make sure that we can actually have fires. Depending on the time of year, depending on the area, the amount of rainfall, the humidity, the wind, there's a lot of factors there. So you want to make sure that you know whether fires and open flames have been banned or if you're allowed to use them. And if you're going to build a campfire, make it small. You don't need a bonfire if you're on a backpacking trip, especially if it's in the middle of the summertime. That's going to be really hot. Now, when you go to put out your fires, you want to make sure to drown them with ample water, and before you go to sleep, the ashes need to be cold to the touch. Cold to the touch. If you don't, Smokey Bear's coming after you. All right, the 6th principle is going to be respecting wildlife. Now, what does that mean? Respect wildlife. Do you salute them? No. Basically, you want to leave them alone. All right, before I came over here and started filming, there were squirrels running around. They've all gone up in the trees by now, so I'm sorry, squirrels. I'm sorry. I'm not respecting you. But there's still some birds and stuff chirping around, so we're doing pretty good. What that means, if you see a snake, leave it alone. If you see a turtle, leave it alone. A lot of times those animals can get really stressed, and sometimes stressed animals can be dangerous to us. Even if it's a harmless snake, or if you think it's a harmless snake, you don't want to take the risk. So respect the wildlife and leave it alone. All right, the 7th and final principle of leave no trace, be considerate to other visitors. Now, how many of you have ever visited a national park or a state park, someplace and the trails were just so crowded with people you could barely move? I have, and especially visiting national parks on the holiday, whoa, there's a lot of people. But we are scouts and we are courteous. So we want to make sure that we do our best to be considerate of other people and their space and their concerns, as well as their skill level. If you're an avid backpacker and someone's on the trail and they don't know the right of way, that's fine. Step aside, let them come through, and everything is great. If you're going out to Philmont and you have the possibility of passing pack animals on a trail, make sure you know those rules as well, because even those people sometimes don't know them. Be considerate to other visitors. Keep your noise levels down. Scouts, I know that sometimes we like to be loud and have fun, but when you're in a state park or a national park, sometimes the other visitors are there just to hear the serenity of the woods and of nature. So we want to make sure that our tones are a little bit lower and we're not being loud and obnoxious, okay? That concludes the principles. We're going to do a quick recap for you, and then we'll see you next time. All right, quick recap on the 7 principles of leave no trace. Number 1, plan ahead and prepare. Number 2, travel and camp on durable surfaces. Number 3, dispose of waste properly. Number 4, leave what you find. Number 5, minimize your campfire impacts. Number 6, respect the wildlife. And number 7, be considerate to other visitors. On behalf of the Chattahoochee Council, I'm Chris, and I'd like to say thank you for watching our videos. Stay tuned coming up next, because we're going to teach you all about fire. Are you excited about fire? I like fire. All right. Thank you very much, and we'll see you soon, Scouts.